It's time for MacBreak Weekly. We're waiting just minutes away from Apple's quarterly results. Fortunately, we've got a great panel to help us predict and analyze what might happen. Rich Siegel from Barebones Software is here, creator of BBEdit from iMore.com. Rene, Ritchie, and of course, Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times. We'll also talk about when the new Macs are coming and why they might not have Intel chips inside. All that and more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Snack Break Weekly, episode 517, recorded Tuesday, July 26th, 2016. Kernel Panic. Snack Break Weekly is brought to you by the Ring Video Doorbell. With Ring, you can see and talk to anyone at your door from anywhere in the world using your smartphone. It's like caller ID for your home. Go to ring.com/MacBreak and get $50 off one of their Ring of Security kits, the Bundle Kit or the Pro Bundle Kit with this limited time offer. And by Harry's. For guys who want a great shave experience for a fraction of what you're paying now, go to harrys.com/MacBreak and get $5 off your first order. And by Adobe Marketing Cloud, introducing Adobe White Papers for Marketing. White papers read aloud to keep you up to date with the latest trends and technologies. Listen today by searching Audio White Papers for Marketing on iTunes or visit adobe.com for more information. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple. And as usual, we conjoin. What's the opposite of adjourn?
Convene.
Convene. Thank you. Rich Siegel, the word master. Of course, he's the guy in charge of BBEdit at barebones.com. Hello, Rich.
Good afternoon, everybody. I apologize for my face being in shadow.
No, but you look good. You look good. It's nice. And there's no birds in evidence, although there's a rather large bag of bird food behind you. How many birds?
Those are nuts.
Oh, those are nuts. Are they for you or the bird?
They're for the birds.
Also with us from Montreal, where he's equally schwitzing.
Yeah.
Mr. Rene Ritchie from iMore.com. Yeah.
It's 26 degrees, Leo, but 100% humidity because Montreal is an island. So you can't tell where the water ends and the air begins.
Thanks to Pokemon Go, I now am familiar with the metric system.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
So I know that 26 degrees means hot.
Yeah. Like some people in Arizona are just laughing at me, but you have a dry heat. This is a wet heat. It's just unpleasant.
Muggy,
it's not civilized.
Muggy, soggy.
I signed up for it. Well, we did have hail. We've had 3 hailstorms in the last week.
I saw your picture of hail. I thought, what the hell?
That was Georgia's roof. The hail took out Georgia's roof.
It's bizarre. How can it be hot and hail?
Because it's cold up there, Leo. It's still cold up there, and then it falls on us, and it's not hot enough to melt it before it impacts.
It's hotter than hail.
Ice comets.
That's pretty crazy.
And also in the warm eastern region of the United States, in this case, Mr. Andrew Ihnatko of the Chicago Sun-Times.
Hey there, hi there, and ho there.
Hey there, hi there, ho there, my friend.
I do have to say this. Well, speaking of Pokemon, I do have a story that involves Pokemon and hail, because I was in the public garden on Friday and just having a good time, taking pictures, and the place was like jam-packed with Pokemon players. Again, adding to the wonderful ambiance of the place, walking around, having a good time, smiling, and like clustered in like big groups around whatever the thingy of the imaginary cartoon guys are. And so my watch buzzes to tell me that there's suddenly the National Weather Service has issued a severe weather alert for like the park involving hail and lightning storms that had touched down 20 minutes away and were heading this way. And I immediately I have my camera, so I break down my tripod, break down my camera, break down my lens, get all packed, my backpack, I'm about to go. And then I realized that, no, this is what Superman would do in this situation. And I walk into the middle of the conclave and I say, Pokemon players, may I have your attention? Would you please check the weather apps on your phone? There is a severe weather alert.
Oh, no. Did you really do it?
I honestly did.
You're so awesome.
And I'm also not lying because when I tell you that one of the players like walked up to me and said, I quote, "You're a hero."
Oh,
I said, well, there you go.
You're a hero. There's no telling how many lives you saved.
Exactly.
Next time, please Snapchat it, video it. We got to see that. That's awesome.
So, which meant that like I actually took the long way, like through the park, to make sure that I got all the groups, because I wanted as many people to look upon me as some sort of Superman as possible. This is probably my only chance my entire life to be thought of as a hero by strangers.
You are a true hero.
They're good, honest folk.
Did you raise your hands like this? How did you gesture?
Well, I for the second time, like I found like a tree branch that was down, so I held it aloft like Charlton Heston.
Wave it.
Let my players go.
I was going to say, did you part the duck pond?
That is
my ducklings go.
At the same stick, I did the Gandalf.
That is so great.
You shall not pass.
Today, the big news today will be later today. Unfortunately, Apple does this, but it's not. I can't blame Apple for doing it. They wait till the markets close. They will at 2 p.m. Pacific, about 2.5 hours from right now. Right, will announce their quarterly earnings.
The press release, I think, will be 1:30, and then the conference call.
Okay, so we might, if we go a little long, get the press release. This is the third quarter for Apple. And Q3 for Apple and Q4 are traditionally down quarters because Q1 is the one where you see the benefit from all the new stuff, right?
Yeah, so they're going to make billions of dollars and be officially doomed again.
I know, but it won't be. Well, will it be? I think people won't look at the profit, although the profit will be, of course, good. They'll look at and we'll be looking for declines. Now, is it a growth decline or a literal decline in sales in the iPhone? It's a growth decline.
Yeah, for Wall Street purposes, yeah, they're interested in new markets. And well, Wall Street is interesting because if you don't have a big market, they're complaining that you're not getting marketed aggressively enough. And if you do have a big market, they're complaining that there's no growth opportunities. And Apple's not opening stores on Mars anytime soon, so they're constrained to the population of just our planet.
Yeah,
iPhones.
And there's been a sell-off.
Plus potentially the planet that the analysts live on.
Yes, I mean the Earthling analysts. They're so ethnocentric.
I'm going to use Yahoo Finance just kind of for old times' sake. What the hell?
Verizon Finance.
I'll use Verizon Finance to show Apple's. It's not as I like Google better. Well, you could see there's been a sell-off. This is 5 days. If we just look at today, there's a sell-off. People are expecting the worst. That may mean that, and we don't do stock tip hits here, and the stock market is completely irrelevant to what we're talking about in general. But that may mean the stock price goes up when they make the announcement. But clearly, investors are expecting bad news from an investment point of view.
Yeah, people. I hope that Apple fans don't ever take this sort of stuff personally, because it's not just that they're on a different planet; it's that they see Apple as a generator of stock profits. They don't see them as a generator of phones and other devices. Right. So I mean, getting back, it all comes back this week. It all comes back to either a camera app or Pokemon Go. It's like that. So Nintendo stock went way up when Pokemon Go was successful, and then the stock market realized, oh wait, they don't actually make all that much money. Nintendo doesn't make all that much money off of Pokemon Go, and then it went down again.
That was so funny.
When there was a sell-off, like, okay, please don't worry about what the analysts say about the stock market, because they have been fighting this fight deep in the jungle for so long that they know no law unto the law that allows them to keep living and fighting another day.
But here's why it is germane to the things we care about, which are technology, which Apple products and Wither Apple and all of that stuff, only because any publicly held company kind of has to pay attention to its stock price, because that's how you hire people. And Twitter's a good example, because their struggles, they're making money, they're doing fine, but their struggles with the stock price are all about acquiring talent. A, and B, Apple, I think to a certain degree, because of that. Well, let me ask, to what degree does Apple strategize and think about what it wants to do based on the market's response? Is that important?
No, well, remember that famously Tim Cook has told at shareholder meetings in the past, hey, look, if you don't, for instance, when in their programs that are basically human rights oriented, saying, well, shouldn't be spending some of this money in the form of revenues. And he said, look, if you want a company that's going to maximize profits and not let us do what we want to do, Apple may not be the right investment for you. And then he added that I think that there will be people who will be very willing to take your stock off your hands. And that's pretty much how it went. I'm sure that is the sort of thing that you can say when you hold a hand with 4 aces in it. If they were in, Yahoo territory financially, they would be saying, yes, shareholders, thank you, shareholders, please don't sell us off to Nintendo shareholders. But I don't think that they're terribly concerned about the stock price, only in as much as the stock price doesn't restrict what they can do in the next 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, and it seems also that they struggle to communicate with the stock market. Like, they just don't know why the stock reacts the way that it does to Apple. And it makes sense from a certain school of investing, especially the one that's very focused on what can you do for me right now. And they thought, we're making billions on the iPhone, and Wall Street said, meh, don't really care. And then they tried the services, like, we're doing services. It's not about the margins anymore. It's about raising the amount of money we're taking from each user, like the average revenue per user, which is a metric used in many other industries. And then last call, they kind of down-emphasized that, but they started emphasizing other things. And it seems like they're struggling to figure out a new narrative. The old narrative was just, we make the most popular product in the history of products, and people are throwing money at us, and Wall Street was great. But when that product starts to max out, they need a new narrative, and that's something they haven't found yet. I mean, we'll hear today whether they've got a new one, but
so they are. I mean, they are a little influenced. Then, I mean, if for all Tim Cook's protestations, they do have to pay a little bit of attention to what the world thinks of them, at least the stock market. Right?
They got a board of directors.
Yeah, and so they have to acquire talent and
retain it.
Perception is, yeah, sure. I mean, I think when Steve Jobs was there, he probably was so bloody-minded that he just did what he wanted. But it's not that way anymore. It's not really a benign dictatorship anymore, is it?
Yeah.
I think it is. It's just that there's a different dictator. And
is Tim Cook that as powerful?
Oh, I am quite confident that he is.
He's not as opinionated.
He's a different kind of leader.
He's not as he's clearly a very different personality type, and I'm sure that he runs a very different sort of organization. But I am quite certain that he's just as strong-willed an individual. And my guess is that Apple focuses on the fundamentals, and they know that if they do that, the investors will be happy. The big institutional investors will be happy. The stock market in general will be happy. And, that's okay.
That's what you want a company to do.
That's what you want a company to do, exactly. And I think that Apple is a long-term buy. You don't buy some Apple and then plan on selling it again anytime soon if you want to make any money, because that's just not how it works.
And in fact, I would guess, I think I agree with you, Rich. I think I would guess that Tim Cook is a buffer to the pressure, because there's definitely pressure. There's lots of pressure from Carl Icahn and people like that, but there's also just pressure in general. And I think Tim probably, I would guess, sees his job as kind of the front man. Like, he's going to take that, and he's going to make sure that people behind him go, don't worry, guys, get the job done. I'll take care of this.
Luca, you stand there, I'll stand here.
It all comes down to comic.
Well, remember that famous Steve Jobs line? Like, there's this really famous Steve Jobs line where he said, "We feel that we take care of the top line, and the bottom line will take care of itself."
And that's the right way to run a company. I just see so many companies not doing that now.
Super reactionary.
Yeah, and even companies that don't need to, really don't need to, becoming less customer focused. And this is my biggest gripe about the technology industry right now. They've turned their eye from customer. Look at Microsoft with its upgrade to Windows 10 thing. That's not for customers. That has nothing to do with customer satisfaction.
That's Windows as a service.
That has to do with reinventing the company for their own benefit and probably for the stock market. Because the stock price has been so sluggish. It's now going well, and I see a lot of companies doing that pretend maybe to be customer first but aren't. And so I want Apple to stay that way.
There's every company has to strike a balance between doing what they want to do, making their customers happy, but also doing things that really enhance their business plan. You could also make this. You can make the same statement that Apple is not making low-cost computers or services that work for the masses, or devices that work independently of Apple hardware, because they are creating products that always will suit the bottom line. It would be really wonderful if I could use my iPhone with other services. It would be really wonderful if I could use iMessage on other platforms. It would be really nice if I could afford a $400 MacBook, or a well-made $600 MacBook, or a Mac for education that's really super affordable. But none of these are going to help out Apple make a lot of money and secure their independence and maintain their independence in the near future. So that's always going to be true of some to the other. I think that Apple has, to their credit, they've stuck their neck out a lot further than other companies by saying, look, we are actually explicitly stating we are here to make the best products for customers that have ever been made. So when if they were to totally screw something up, they look a lot worse than some no-name Korean phone manufacturer would if they created like a fingerprint sensor that doesn't really work very well, or a healthcare service that is not really very useful, because people will replay that wonderful keynote presentation in which the very, very famous celebrity CEO said that we thought about everything about this, and we know that this is how users are going to want to use this. And then when they get the sad trombone after 1 week after release date, like, yeah.
Should also say that a company that does what it thinks is right may also ignore users, some categories of users as well. For instance, Apple seems to be turning away from the professional. That doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. If they
Ford wouldn't make faster horses.
Right. Right. So I mean,
I hate that analogy.
No, I love it because very few companies have focus, and it hurts them long term. And you can argue that Apple has missed many opportunities and maybe hasn't served the public good when it comes to things like lower cost devices. But it's very hard to state over the long period of Apple's existence that focus has hurt them. And saying no to those things, I think, is key to their culture and would potentially have benefited a lot of companies that were very quick to say yes and now are either shells or remnants of great companies past.
Well, focus is all about saying, I'm sorry, Andy.
Saying no. I know where you're going.
Focus is all about saying no. And the other thing that I was going to say is that there really is a two-way relationship between what's good for the customer and what's good for the business. I'm not going to second guess Microsoft on doing whatever Microsoft does. But there are times when you might push a new platform because in the long run it is best for the customer. All of these people who are running Windows XP, 7, Vista, it's like, yeah, they really ought to be using Windows 10.
Yeah.
And are there questions about or reasonable objections to how Microsoft has undertaken to drive that adoption? Absolutely. But I'm not necessarily sure that it is entirely self-serving of them to do so. I think there are times when you say yes to the customer, you say no to the customer, you push the customer a certain direction, because ultimately that does fit with what you want to do as a business, and that will benefit the customer.
Little tough love is not a bad thing.
Well, yeah, kind of. Sometimes you got to be nice about it, but yeah.
Right.
Well, my way of thinking about it is that if you want to be a great company, or any great creator has to have a point of view and has to have an ability to express that point of view, an understanding of here is what I believe the world to be like, and here's what I think, here's what I'm going to create that is going to be completely relevant in that world as I see it. And so without that, you're just an assembler of components. You're not really a creator of things. The only thing that I hope that didn't come across earlier as being harsh against Apple, it's just that there are a few narratives that I find a little out of date and unhealthy for the Apple community and for Apple. And one of them is to think of Apple as a really special company that really isn't about XYZ. They're really about creating great, insanely great things and making customers happy. It's like, well, again, at the end of every thought list, it comes to, there's the phrase, and this will make us money. This will make us profitable. This will make us be successful, still be around in 5 years and still be able to do the things we want to do, as opposed to having to react with cat-like reactions to what we think the market demands. And I think every other company that is operating at Apple's level, and there are many, is also doing that exact same thing. So that's the only thing that whenever we have there are these discussions, I always want to make sure that's not that Apple is this holy is this holy acid dropping ashram attending company that's elevated above all others. They have found a narrative, a point of view that also is compatible with being nice to customers, and sometimes they give it to customers right in the neck. Ask anybody who was deeply invested in Apple products for 12 years, and then it was decided that, well, we actually don't really need you as a professional creative type anymore. So, hey, have an Apple Watch. We made exactly the Mac Pro you've been waiting for 4 or 5 years. It's a cylinder that you can't really upgrade that much yourself. But hey, if you have a big desk, you can put all kinds of boxing cables and plugged into it instead of actually just buying the components and plugged in. But hey, look, it's a cylinder. That's what you wanted. All right, you don't want? Well, we don't care anymore.
Yeah, we don't care, really. Yeah. That's what hurt me. That's what broke my heart. But again, I'm not the mass of the market that they're going for.
No, but it's like I did a big article on why Macs haven't been updated this year, and it's like a confluence of everything bad happening. With Skylake problems and pushbacks on different standards being implemented, and they're waiting on AMD for some stuff. But other things, they could have updated the GPUs in the Mac Pros and pushed out new GPUs, and they've had the Haswell and Broadwell versions of Xeon that they just haven't used. Maybe they didn't fit what they needed, but they didn't use them either, and now they're waiting on Skylake Xeon. So I'm sure internally it makes all the sense in the world, but from outside it's like you made the supercomputer and you haven't updated it in 4 years.
Well, there's a missing piece too, which we don't know, which is how many they've sold. It maybe they've sold 300.
You need it anyway. Like, this is one of those things.
I was one of them, and I am. By the way, it is now back to being a doorstop. I found somebody who'll take it off my hands.
But it's one of those things you do because you have to do it. It's like, I'm sure Lamborghini doesn't make all the money in the world for, is it Volkswagen or BMW who owns it, but you have to do it. You have to make you make those supercomputers because it's part of your vision as a company.
Yeah.
And then you update them because people are bought in.
Or because it's part of your brand.
Yeah.
More than it's part of your vision.
Yeah.
But this is also an area where I really think that if there's a cultural shift, I would love to see Apple do that. If I were a full of myself analyst who is being paid at least 30 times as much more than what I'm being paid right now for my job, I would be saying things that I would like for Apple in the next 5 years to lose the philosophy of secrecy being a force multiplier. And I think that they're entering a phase where it's actually holding them back. There's no reason for them to say, here is our strategy, here is our plans for now for the Pro line of Macs, and here's what's going to be required for us to release the next wave. As opposed to, again, well, no, we're not going to release an update. Nope, not this year either. Well, nope, another year near gone by. It basically gives people a lot of room to think, look, I now have a MacBook, or I have a desktop that has had so many beverages spilled on it right now that I could just make it mounted vertically and turn it into an ant farm. It is so broken up, I need to buy a new one. And so when you do that, that's a danger if a company like HP is making a really super great laptop, and Windows is now really, really very, very good and does some things that seem, I'm going to underscore the word seem, fresh and innovative to someone who's been using the same operating system for the past 10 years. And someone might say, this $3,000 has been burning a hole in my pocket. I'm going to give it to this company over here because I'm actually using mostly Adobe and Microsoft software that runs on any platform that I want to use. I'm using cloud services that will work on either platform. Why am I waiting in the hopes that someday I will be able to give this money to Apple and get a computer in return?
What are the expectations? Will there be any surprises this afternoon in their announcements? Will they make an announcement, a forward-looking announcement about products? Will they take Andy's advice and maybe...
The operating systems will ship this fall.
I was going to say, it's an earnings call, right?
Yeah, but sometimes they've used earnings calls as more than an earnings call. They know that
they've announced shipment dates for, they announced the Mac OS X shipment date 1 year.
Yeah.
Several years.
And they've
ago.
also explained themselves sometimes in there, right?
Yeah, that's one point I was going to make. I don't think that users should care that much about the numbers that are being trumped, because believe me, there are a lot of people who are waiting on both sides of the flag line. They're waiting to pounce by saying, "Oh, well, you see, so Apple sold a lot of Apple Watches based on the hype, but look what the numbers say that after that, or Apple people looking at another piece of numbers and saying, oh, well, look how much we're kicking butt in the phone space. None of those things really affect users at all, so you can ignore them. But it is one of the very, very few opportunities over the course of a year for a room full of analysts and reporters to ask a question of senior management and put them on the spot, and they have to answer it. Other companies, they tend to do that quite frequently, both formally and informally. So oftentimes this is a good chance to for people to ask questions that maybe aren't going to be in the next Fortune magazine cover interview with Joni Ive and Tim Cook.
Well, if we stall long enough, we'll at least get the press release. But that only will have the numbers.
Let me tell you why I was in the public garden with my during that storm watch. Now you see,
yeah,
Andy's now going to sing all of Hamilton.
Andy anecdote time.
I have to put on the Mark Twain wig to get in character.
Hey, are you still entering the Hamilton lottery, or is it all over now that Lin-Manuel Miranda and Philippa Sue and
a chance to see it for $10? Heck yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to be in New York a few times in the next
a great show.
5-6 months. Yeah. So
it's just yeah. I would go see it. We're going to go see it in San Francisco. I'm sure it won't even be.
The touring company is going to be great. It's going to be great no matter how you go see it.
It's such a good show. I still listen to the soundtrack almost every morning. It gets me up, pumped up.
It's an amazing driving. I drove to Ottawa this weekend. And I just put it on, and it gets you from Montreal to Ottawa perfectly.
Yeah. By the way,
excitedly.
That Tesla does have a great sound system. Better than that Audi. That sound
Does Hamilton make you drive fast, Leo? It makes me drive faster because it's so exciting. I have to be careful.
It makes me, yes, it does. I am not throwing away my shot.
I've got $20 to any company that will legally sell me a copy of the King George or King George songs transposed to baritone. You say the cost of my love's not a price that you're willing to pay. I can sort of get there, but I can't do the poncing sort of like
I know.
And keep my voice another register higher. It's
Jonathan Groff sounds so good.
Oh God, that must be so much fun. So much fun.
It was
Everyone
so
else on
much
this
fun.
Must envy that guy. You get a crown and a cape, and you get 3 fun numbers where you're all
and that's
alone.
it. And the rest of the time backstage.
You don't have all those people in corsets like dancing around you, taking the spotlight off of you.
And then he doesn't move at all except for he does a little shoulder thing. It's so funny. Anyway, I'm sorry. How did that happen? Hey, folks, at least it's not Pokemon Go. Our show is brought to you today by my doorbell, the Ring Video Doorbell. You know, it's funny how you get used to having this doorbell, because I now know when anybody comes and goes in my house, I will get a notification on my phone. They have a Mac app. You can see the videos of somebody coming and going. When somebody rings your doorbell, you'll hear a chime. You can respond. The Ring Video Doorbell has a microphone and speakers. It's amazing. I was just talking to Russell, our IT guy who uses it. He says, for me, I have a lot of, he's an IT guy. He's a contract guy. He doesn't work for us. He's one of our contract employees. But he has a business, and he gets a lot of deliveries, as you might expect, every day. And he says, frequently I'm not there. I'm out on the job. But I know when I'm on a job and my doorbell rings, and I can then speak to the delivery guy, I could say, okay, just enter the code 0345 and put that inside the door. Just another great way to use the Ring Video Doorbell. It replaces your existing doorbell. It connects to the internet, and it changes, literally, as a lot of these technologies do, it changes the way you experience life. Pretty soon you take it for granted. And there's no mystery. I know when people are coming. I know when people are going. I can see people in my drive. I never miss a delivery. I know when appointments arrive on time. Yesterday we had a repairman who didn't show up. He was supposed to come, from what they do, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We couldn't be there the whole time, but I knew that when he came and rang the doorbell, I'd know he was there, and I could say, "Hold on, I'll be right there." And then I also know he never showed up because I got a video of him not being there. So here's what you do. You get the Ring Video Doorbell and your life will change. Go to ring.com/MacBreak. They're putting together a really great kit. This is the Ring of Security Bundle Kit, or the Pro Bundle Kit. It includes the Ring Video Doorbell. Now, there's 2 of them now. There's the original, which has a battery, and that means it can go anywhere, even if you don't have a wired doorbell. But if you do have a wired doorbell, you can get the new Pro model is slimmer because it doesn't have the battery. It also has a 1080p camera. instead of a 720p. If you've got a thing for that. You'll also get the stick-up cam, which means it's kind of a bad name, or maybe they did it on purpose, but instead of just monitoring the front, you can put the stick-up cam anywhere, monitor the back as well, and just like the Ring, it has a speaker and a microphone and a camera. And the stick-up cam in the bundle comes with a solar charger, so you don't even have to get power to it. It just works. You could put it anywhere, attach it to the solar panel, and you're done. Boom. You'll also get the chime, which is nice. You can plug that into any outlet, and it will ring when your doorbell rings. So if you have a part of the house or maybe a shed or a garage where you can't hear the doorbell, this is a really nice thing. All of that, $50 off at a great price, ring.com/MacBreak. The HD stick-up cam, by the way, is wireless and weatherproof. So you can put it anywhere, and that's really handy. And by the way, both the doorbell and the cam have optional cloud video recording, so you can easily capture and share video with family, friends, or, should it be necessary, law enforcement. The Ring video doorbell, the stick-up cam, they install easily. I did it myself, and I am no handyman. And you get 24/7 monitoring now of your entire home, wherever you are, anywhere, at home or 1,000 miles away. Join the hundreds of thousands who have protected their home with Ring and our many, many listeners. For a limited time, MacBreak Weekly listeners save $50 off the Ring of Security Kits, either the bundle or the Pro Bundle. Go to ring.com/MacBreak, and you'll take advantage of the lowest price anywhere. Ring.com/MacBreak. We thank the Ring Video Doorbell for their support of MacBreak Weekly. Andy Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times, Rene Ritchie from iMore, and our favorite developer, Rich Siegel. He's at barebones.com. I think a new BBEdit update just came out, didn't it, recently, right? Am I wrong?
We shipped BBEdit 11.6 earlier this month, but also just 2 hours ago.
What?
We shipped an upgrade to Text Strangler.
Now, don't say Text Strangler.
It's pronounced Tech Strangler.
Text Strangler.
It's your Text Strangler.
Production.
No, text.
Not text.
He rides the
Text
badlands of Austin
Strangler,
and
but
Dallas.
Strangler. Actually, everybody, this is the free version of BBEdit, and everybody should have a copy of this. When I set up a new Mac, it's the first thing I download, because you always need to edit text, and Text Wrangler makes it so easy. I bought BBEdit both because I want to, and I've owned it ever since probably BBEdit 1 because I've always wanted to support Rich, but also because it has some really cool additional features. My favorite, I mention it every time, is the command line worksheets, which remind me so much of MPW. I miss the Macintosh Programmers Workshop. I just loved that. And this does what that did, which is I can execute command line commands and get the result in an editable worksheet, which is so cool.
Execute people at a distance.
At a distance. Kill.
So there's a couple of things we did with the new releases. In BBEdit 11.6, we changed the evaluation demo model, whatever you care to call it. There's still a 30-day demo, and the software is fully functional for those first 30 days. And after 30 days, though, in the old versions, we used to say, well, sorry, your demo's over, you can't start the app anymore. And with 11.6, what we did was instead say, okay, your demo's over, so you don't get all the advanced features anymore, but the core feature set that you get to keep after the demo period, after the evaluation period is over, is a superset of what's in Text Wrangler.
Nice. That's very nice. So get BBEdit then. Don't that's where you go.
So
right?
So here's the thing, right? Text Wrangler is still our product. We're keeping it up to date. We're supporting our customers, but and we know that there are some folks who just sort of want to stick with what they know. But we are encouraging everybody who has Text Wrangler or who's looking at Text Wrangler to grab BBEdit and take a look at it, because at the end of the day, at the end of the demo period, the evaluation period, what you have is Text Wrangler plus a few things, and there is a comparison chart on our website. I'll find that and put it into text that shows you the differences.
Excellent. Excellent. I will, we'll put it up in a screen in a second. But that's cool. That's how you used to do it with BBEdit, isn't it?
Well, back in the day, the BBEdit demo, in the very early days, BBEdit couldn't save in the demo version. We actually a separate build of the product. And then we went to license codes and a 30-day evaluation period, and the software would simply stop. There you go. That's the one. And down below that shows all the differences between Text Wrangler and BBEdit. And then if you scroll down some more, there's a much shorter chart that shows the differences between BBEdit in demo mode and Text Wrangler.
So it's a superset, as you said, more things in the demo mode.
Exactly, and the demo mode is free to use forever. There's no nagging. There's no interruptions. You can just, if you don't want to give us any money, you don't have to.
I think that's smart because
obviously we'd like you to.
Yeah, you're going to get more people using the full features of it, and then make the decision that, oh yeah, it's worth it. It is worth it. It's absolutely worth it to pay for it. Thank you, Rich. I don't know if you know the folks at Soft Press. They've been around almost as long as you have. They do Freeway Pro and Freeway Express. Somebody in the chat room just sent me the note that they have stopped development, and I guess they're retiring. Rich Logan and Joe Billings. The end of Soft Press Systems.
I remember those. I remember those guys from way back when.
1993.
Yeah, and I met them. I've met them at several Macworld expos. Remember that name?
Another late lamented Macintosh stalwart.
And it's a shame that they haven't been able to keep going. But yeah, I remember those guys. I remember those guys very well, and I hope they found a comfortable retirement or whatever their next gig is. You know, it's hard to stop doing this.
I bet. But you continue to make a living, right? I mean, you're comfortable enough that you can continue to do this, or is it getting harder?
It's getting harder as I've gotten older, and it's getting harder as the economy has changed, and it's getting harder as the industry has changed. You know, is it always going to be easy? No. Hoping it gets easier, yes. But I still enjoy writing and shipping software. And as long as I am able to make a living doing it, and as long as I continue to enjoy doing it, I'll keep doing it.
Well, we hope you do. Love BBEdit. And love having you part of the Macintosh community, more importantly.
And we can just mail you money, right? Like, just
just send Rich money.
Totally. I mean, you don't. If you don't need a license, just send us money. I think we have
or if you already got one, just gift it or send more.
Right.
So, good news and bad news. The bad news is there was a significant flaw, a vulnerability that's hit not only iOS, but OS X, watchOS, and tvOS. Interestingly, it was a similar vulnerability to the stage fright vulnerability that hit Android. It's the media player on these would allow a malformed message coming in to do a remote code exploit and take over your computer.
Do you remember, Leo? I think it was iOS 1.2 or something where a TIFF could just jailbreak it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, those are the days, weren't they?
Well, but I mean, these are the things. They run so close to the kernel that any bug or anything can result in an overflow.
I don't think it's a complete coincidence that it's so similar to the stage fright bug. I think you're right. I think media players, well, we've seen this in Microsoft Windows too. The WMF Windows Media format of files had the similar problem where a malformed. This is a problem because it's a data file. I think sometimes people go, oh, a data file's got to be safe. There's no executable in there. So, but when a data file can take over your system, that's a scary thing.
When you move it down because you want performance, then
In this case, nothing to fear. Well, mostly nothing to fear because Cisco, the company that discovered this, warned Apple and did not make it public until Apple was able to patch it. I say mostly because they have patched all current versions of their operating systems, but that is El Capitan on desktop, but not Yosemite and Mavericks. Do they intend to? Have they said? Or are they
They
just...
have in the past. They've done it several versions back in the past. But to Andy's earlier point, they don't disclose which ones they're going to update and when in advance.
This would be one that'd be nice to know.
Yeah. This is where the taking care of the customer is like a holistic sort of approach to Apple, where it's the same sort of threat that you find on other platforms, but its target is its threat is much less on Apple's products, because they really have created a culture where we are going to make it so damn attractive and easy for you to install every single system update by making them free, by making them only disable your phone for 10 minutes if that, to make sure that they download in the background, so that whereas it's a really big deal to get your dad or your aunt to say you're running not just XP, you're running XP without any security service packs. I can fix that for you so that you don't lose your house another 3 times by just and whereas there's this culture in the Apple community of it just happens that way. So, but these are terrible, because remember, these are also, it takes advantage of the fact that operating systems tend to trust things that it doesn't think there's going to be code in. So, like messaging apps tend to say, oh well, I can help the user by here comes an image file. I will actually download that. I won't ask the user if they want to put it in. I'll actually put it in the buffer automatically so that it loads in automatically, and that's without even having to tap anything, without having to do anything. That's how you get infected. That's how you get pwned.
So, as with stage fright and the WMF problem, a malformed data file, an image, could trigger a buffer overflow and allow... again, we should emphasize this has not been seen in the wild, although now that it's been revealed, that may change, but could allow an attacker to inject malware or remotely execute code. And since it's a media player, it is not just messages, but malicious web pages, MMS messages, other malicious file attachments opened by any application. Somebody could send you a TIFF or a bitmap in your email, and if you opened it, similar problem. It does underscore the ability of Apple to update. And by the way, if you haven't updated, the July 18th update for OS X fixes this. In fact, that was they did an update for didn't they? For everything. Yeah. And we saw that and we thought, oh, that's interesting. They updated everything. Well, now you know why.
Yeah, it's the shared frameworks things. I mean, they're using so much technology across their entire stack now that if you find it in one, it's almost certain. Well, there's a high likelihood you'll find it in a lot of them.
Yeah.
If not all of them.
It sort of gets an interesting angle to the fact that every single device that Apple makes in the next year is going to be running on the same unified file system and security system. It kind of ups the stakes for them to make sure that there are no vulnerabilities, because the idea of owning not just a phone, but if you found a vulnerability that can affect not just one device, but the entire platform of devices that might be in someone's house, that's super bad.
Yeah. And it does underscore the difference between Android and iOS, and Android and Macintosh in general, is that Apple people tend to update, and Apple has the ability to push those updates. Stage fright is still an issue on older Android phones, because unless the manufacturer or the carrier pushes it, Google has no ability to force it on them.
Yeah, and it's several layers deep, because not only that, but it has to be tailored for every chipset and multiple chipsets in each device. So there are times where if you really get the bad straw, you can wait a year and a half for a really valuable update to happen. Although Google's been trying to address that by splitting out security updates away from mainline Android updates, it's still a huge problem. It's one of the reasons why it would take a really great phone for me to not buy a Nexus phone. I really want a phone that gets updated directly from Google, that Google can control. It will continue to be a big problem until there's a revolution in the way that Google architects these devices.
And the important thing to think too, like there was a jailbreak release this week. I think it's for 9.3.3 and 9.3.2, but those involve exploits. Someone found a way, probably many exploits, because they had to go through a circuitous pass to get there. But there's another jailbreak, and Apple will patch that as well, and they'll go back to trying to find more exploits, not to disclose to Apple or to use for attacks, but just to get jailbreak to keep working. And that's sort of the nature of modern software, is that people are continuously pushing against it, find things, disclose them, or Apple discovers them in the wild and patches them.
So just so you know, the two issues are in core graphics, and that's CVE 2016-4637. That's been patched for Mavericks, Yosemite, and El Capitan, but there's another one that is in the image IO. Let's see, that's image IO 4629 and 4630. Actually, there's several, and then there's another one in image IO that's 4631. That's the one that has only been patched in El Capitan. So, they have been. It looks like they're trying to patch it as widely as they can, and for some reason, this particular issue 4631 has only been patched in El Capitan. Not sure what that is all about, but that's why it's probably a good idea to update if you are running an older version and get to El Capitan.
It's free, and it works on every Mac that the previous version works on.
And you've often heard us carp about do not run beta software on something that you're going to be counting on. And even when the new operating system is actually released, wait at least a few weeks if you don't necessarily have to run it right now, just in case there are final bugs. When it comes to like security updates like this, go ahead. Whatever minimal risk that there's something bad's going to happen to your phone is far, far, far outweighed by the protection you're going to get from something that Apple deemed so bad that they pushed out a special security update to address it. Definitely download and install any security update that comes out.
Yep, security updates, maintenance patches, anything after the initial release. Yeah, I'm with you, Andy, and I agree and reinforce the point. Yeah, keep up to date, keep patched
for everything you can. Yeah. One of the things Google's done to address that on Android is they have a monthly security update, but again, they can't force manufacturers and carriers to push it. So if you're buying a Google phone, an Android phone, you absolutely should check to see if they will support the monthly security updates. And Samsung does, and Motorola does, LG does, the big ones do, but if they don't, in fact, that's one of the issues I have with this OnePlus 3. As much as I like it, they have not yet said they're going to support the monthly update, and
you have to
that's concerning.
You have to factor customer service and ongoing updates as part of the price of a phone. So when you're looking at phones and you're comparing them, if something is $100 cheaper, but you know that phone is going to be updated all the time, and if you drop it, there'll be a place for you to call, and if you have a software issue or a bug, there'll be a place for you to, like, a friend of mine just RMA'd a phone, and it was not a good experience. They have to mail it back, and they'll check it once they mail it back, and after a while, they'll send it. They maybe if they agree to it, they'll send it, and it's going to be like 3 or 4 weeks without a phone.
You won't have a phone. Yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah,
and because he saved a few bucks up front, but he would have been better off going with a Nexus or a phone that was going to get updates.
By the way, place where I think I fail and a lot of tech reviewers fail is that's not something we test very often. You know, what happens if you have to do an RMA? What kind of support are you going to get? It's hard for us to test, and we don't spend enough time with the phones, and often don't have enough problems with the phones that we experience what support is like.
Yeah, I had a hysterically funny experience on that same day that I was in town. A wonderful, wonderful lyric tenor who calls himself the Boston Tenor. But he's a perfect. I had a little clip of him on my Instagram. Yeah, he was doing this beautiful concert like in front of the Boston Public Library, which has sort of like a natural sort of amphitheater effect. And he's under a big umbrella that he brought, and he has a clip to the pole of the umbrella, a Lenovo tablet that's got his music and his lyrics on it, and he's singing these beautiful Neapolitan songs as a warm-up, and then like he has to stop in the middle and say, dang it, everybody don't buy a Lenovo tablet because mine broke that last week, a couple weeks ago, and I sent it in to be fixed, and I'm still using a loaner that doesn't work properly, and
well, one good thing about being a little bit on the front line, like doing the radio show and stuff, I get user reports, so I try to pay attention. And that's one reason, you're safer with Apple in general because they really do support their stuff. I mean, nobody's perfect, but I think you do have to measure one massive and important measure of a technology company. Nobody makes perfect stuff. It's what happens when you get the bad seed and what they do. And Apple almost always does a good job of that, better than anybody.
I told the story before, but my iPhone 4S got hit by fireworks and it melted the alphabet coding on the screen. And I took it in, and the guy behind the counter looked at it and he said, "What happened?" And I told him, I said, "My iPhone heroically jumped in front of me and saved me from being hit by fireworks, but now it feels like sandpaper." And he gave me a very stern lecture about you really need to take better care of your devices. But then just replaced it, gave me a new phone. I put in my iCloud stuff, and I left with a virtually identical version of my phone half an hour later.
And that was not Apple's fault. That's really nice.
there are obviously a great many variables to choosing a device, but one thing that's always going to be in Apple's favor is someplace within a 10-minute drive or 30-minute bus ride, there is a nice person behind a desk who will look at the thing that broke and either fix it for you under warranty for free, or again give you a little bit of a lecture, but then say we're awesome, so we're going to replace this. And other companies are great too. I mean, I buy a lot of electronics that I test on eBay, as a matter of fact, and 30 days, send it back, they'll give your money back. That's fine. But you can't beat the Apple logo that you drive by pretty much 3 times a week just on your daily business, and knowing that, again, if things go really south, I can request sanctuary there at Notre Dame, and they will take me in and give me cocoa.
There is a long time attitude of this in the kind of the business or the higher end or the IT marketplace. I just got this free BSD desktop from a company called ABMX. This is what they do, and I was really impressed. This is the QA certificate that comes with it, that shows that they've gone through every subsystem and inspected it, and there's a person's name by hand, and there's a person's name, and I think that's kind of a little more the expectation in the business class and then server class stuff, the consumer class stuff. But it isn't exclusive to Apple. It's still out there, but boy, you really have to look for it, don't you? And
Apple's a known quantity.
Yeah, Apple will do it for you. Hey, let's take a break. We're gonna come back with more. Rene Ritchie's here from iMore.com, the host of the Debug podcast. What else are you doing these days?
Apple Talk with Michael Gartenberg, Trinity
That's the new
Caldwell,
one.
which I'm enjoying a lot. Yeah, it's going really well.
Good. You must listen. Go to iMore.com. On the left, there's a hamburger menu. You'll find podcasts right there, and they're all great. Really, iMore.
Thank you.
It's really. Did you guys intentionally do a makeover, or it just kind of has evolved over time? Because it's really got just so good.
We decided a couple of years ago that the technology was going mainstream. Like, it used to just be us early adopters who would grab, technology and play with it. But now it's totally mainstream. Like, my entire family has iPhones, and their interests are not the same as a typical tech person's interest. Like, as much as we make fun of Pokemon, there's just so many people playing it and using Snapchat, and Facebook is the internet to a lot of people. And we pivoted hard into trying to start, like, if your device is busted, we want to help you fix it. If you bought an iPhone and don't know what to do with it, we want to help you get the most out of it.
Right.
And we're going to, in the short term, we're going to be going much further into that. I think you'll see many more changes in relatively short order.
It's always a challenge, because I like serving the enthusiast, the hardcore geek. But there are some, you have to have an entry level, because nobody starts that way. And you want them, and frankly, hardcore geeks don't need as much help. I just happen to like that group, so it's nice to have somewhere you could say, "Oh, go to iMore. They're going to have all the explainers for you," and I do that more and more on the radio show. I will refer people to a website where they can learn the basics, because people need to learn that,
We had one guy write in and said, I work in enterprise and I'm so angry at Apple because I have to wait 2 minutes for my iPhone to turn off. Can't they just put a button on the phone that turns it off? And you very nicely write back and go, that little button on the side there. And they're like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. But, and they're not dumb people. I mean, they have really good, they just don't know.
Right.
Because they've never thought about it. No one ever told them. Or like my father didn't know to email photographs. Like, he just didn't know you could email them off the iPhone. And he was an IBM engineer back when they were installing early railroad and airport systems, but he didn't know which little button you pressed and what you did. And so I showed him, and now he emails me photos every day.
Yeah. There's a ton of that stuff.
Absolutely.
Just endless, basically. Yeah. And also Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times, where he writes about technology for the middle American, the beef-fed.
the backbone of America, the common
broad-shouldered man.
West.
Yes.
There you go.
You got to follow any social accounts, particularly his Instagram and Flickr accounts, because I love your images, and you're a great contributor to my Instagram feed. Things like that tenor, and I just love running across that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunately I'd seen him before, but only when I had like just my phone. And this time I was doing like a lot of photography, so I had like all my lenses. I had my good camera. I had a tripod, and I'm like, you know what? I had other things to do before meeting someone for lunch, but I'm just going to shoot video of this lovely tenor.
Isn't that awesome?
That was a fun day.
Our show today brought to you by Harry's. Now, maybe you heard that those other guys just got bought by the big company for a lot of money. maybe it's time to start looking at Harry's. Harry's is changing the razor blade industry, and I'm really happy to be not only a Harry's advertiser, but a Harry's customer. Harry's makes high-quality, high-performance blades in their own factory in Germany. They're designed for performance, they're designed for style, but they're also designed for price. They have, of course, every feature that you want, the flex hinge and the aloe lubricating strip, but you're also going to save, it's 50% less than the other brands. And because you're buying Harry's factory direct, they go right to your doorstep. I love Harry's, and I'm not alone. A million guys have moved to Harry's. I just got the new, and I just used it this morning, and I love it, the new Harry's handles. They've got some great ones. I don't know what one is in here. This is the Harry's Truman kit. Yeah, this is the really nice soft touch handle in the Harry's Truman kit. Really it's hard to describe. You got to try it. What's nice about this is a $15 kind of get started with Harry's kit, but they don't give you like sample size stuff. For $15, you get of course the handle. You get 3 blades. You get the great, and by the way, they're now shipping the blades in these great kind of reusable blade covers, plus the travel cover, which is fabulous, and a full size, not sample size, bottle of either their foaming shave gel or their cream. I use the cream. A lot of guys I know like the foaming shave gel. It's kind of like, the Edge gel. And find that lubricates better. You pick the one you want, but get the kit because that'll get you started. Then you subscribe, and they ask you how often do you shave, and they'll send you the blades and the gel at an appropriate interval. You don't have to worry about it. It's a subscription, so it just keeps coming. Easy to cancel. Don't worry. It's not going to be some sort of thing that you're locked into for life. But I don't think you're going to want to change. Now, that's $15. If you want to spend a little bit more, they've got the new Winston handle, and I think this is awesome. The Winston set is $10 more, $25. The handle now has grippies on the metal. It's really kind of a best of both worlds. It's a beautiful, beautiful handle, but the grippies make it easy to hold, easy to shave. Harry's is always improving, and their customer service is the best in the business. Check out the Harry's Winston set or the Truman set. Don't forget they have other products, too. I use their lightweight daily face lotion with SPF 15 every morning because I'm walking in. Got to protect the skin, hydrate, get the sunscreen. I added that to my subscription, too, so I never run out. Why pay $32 for eight razor blades when you can get them for half the price? And great blades, too. No compromise blades. Harry's. Go to harrys.com/MacBreak and get $5 off your first purchase. HARRY. Harrys.com/MacBreak to save $5 off your first order. The best shaving experience you've ever had at Harry's. I look periodically at the when to buy guide from Mac Rumors, because they kind of base it on, well, when do we see a, an iPhone update or a caution on the iPod Shuffle. I don't know what the hell that means. Don't buy an iPod right now. But I was looking more at the Macs because we know you should worry not worry, but you should maybe wait 2 months to see what the iPhone's going to be. But we don't have a schedule for the Macs. They say it's okay to buy a MacBook because that was just updated, but it's red on every other form of Mac because it's been a while. And the rumors are strong that there will be a new MacBook Pro, Rene. What do you think?
So if you look at WWDC last year, I don't, everyone probably knows this already, but the Apple TV was supposed to debut there, and then it got pushed back to September. So they had this huge slot to fill, and we know what happened with that WWDC. This year, the MacBook Pros and maybe some other stuff were tentatively scheduled for the same time period. And it sounds like those also, for various reasons. And with Macs, Apple is incredibly tied to the Intel roadmap, and in some cases to the AMD roadmap as well. Those had to be rescheduled for September. So MacBook Pros, I think, are certain. The Mac Pros, if Apple skips the Broadwell version of Xeon and goes with Skylake, I'm not exactly sure what Intel's timeline is for that. The the Broadwell ones are already here. Sorry, the Skylake ones, I don't know if that timeline matches up. Hopefully it does because we've been waiting so long for them. But I think that will come when Skylake Xeons are available.
Skylake is the current one, although Kaby Lake is imminent now.
Well, Xeon is different though. So Xeon has always
Xeon
been
is different,
behind the mainstream core architecture. So,
but that's
right now,
also the case. You know, when you're using something like a Mac Pro, that you don't necessarily need or even want Skylake architecture. I don't know if there's a real benefit to that. I just bought an E3 because it's very fast, and I don't need many of the battery saving features of Skylake, obviously, on a desktop.
Yeah, I mean, there are some benefits. It also depends on your workflow.
Cache,
if your workflow is super multi-core, then you're more insulated because it's just the gross number of cores that you're using. If you really need those single-threaded processors, then there's probably all sorts of memory management and other things that will give you. And it sounds silly, to announce to a regular consumer, oh, it's a few seconds here, a few seconds there. But to someone who's compiling code or editing video, all of that is just money they're losing while they're waiting for it to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other big deal is that some people don't have the luxury of being able to wait. Like they've broken their laptop and they need a laptop, or they have waited 3 or 4 years and the reason why they've been waiting is that they want the Force Touch trackpad, or they want a Retina display, or they want something special as opposed to something that's currently shipping. And at some point, you just have to buy what's there, and you would have wished that you had an imperfect machine that had been updated 4 months ago, rather than, okay, I'm going to buy essentially the Mac that I bought 3.5 years ago, and knowing that any day now they really are going to have to release something. Yeah. I mean, I bet to keep punishing myself for pouring Dr. Pepper into my laptop. I broke my laptop, my MacBook in November. I just had to go out and buy a brand new one. Fortunately, it had been sort of recently revved, and in just 2 years had made a huge difference in what a MacBook could do. But there are a lot of people who are in that situation where it just galls you that you're buying essentially the same machine that you bought 3 years ago with a few speed bumps to it, when you know that somewhere under a tarp in some part of an industrial park that no one knows that Apple owns, there is the most amazing laptop ever that's just waiting for, as Rene says, Intel to deliver in an envelope a little piece of sand this big, plug it in, and then they can actually go and ship it.
So what do we?
In some cases, it's hard to, like the 21.5-inch iMac. I think Intel is just discontinuing that chip line, last I heard, and so it's unclear what comes next for that. Do they go with the 27-inch chip line? Do they find an alternative? Those things happen when you're dependent on other people's core.
The iMac isn't as aged. I mean, it was updated in October.
Yeah, but it wasn't completely updated. They couldn't do Skylake for the 21.5 because it wasn't available, and it looks like it's not going to be available.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember that if people think that it's just about waiting for, who cares if it's a little bit faster, remember that one of the reasons why Apple was so far behind the rest of the industry in adopting USB 3 was because they can't just simply buy the USB 3 box and glue it onto the motherboard. Really, everything is built together. They were waiting for certain CPUs that had USB 3 support built in for at the core level. So that's what was holding them back, and it really does put pressure on Apple to think about, are we happy with still counting on an outside company having such control over what our game plan can be for desktops and for notebooks?
Yeah, and the 15-inch MacBook Pro didn't get the same update that the 13-inch because I believe the other way around, because the Iris graphics weren't available, and it took another month or two, but Apple had shipped by then. So it just missed that cycle.
Yeah.
It's almost like a system on a chip at this point. It's like you know.
Yeah, and it is noticeable that Apple is not quite in lockstep with Intel the way they used to be, and I suppose there's all kinds of tea leaf reading you could do there, but it's really hard to know what's going on.
Yeah, Kaby Lake's Intel begins shipping the first Kaby Lake processors, but most Macs won't receive them until next year, according to.
We'll see, and the Xeons and Mac Pros are great, but one sort of has to wonder whether Apple might stop trying to do that anymore and just put the fastest possible i7 they can in that box.
But you want cores, right? Don't you want multiple cores? I mean, the people who use Pros, isn't that one of the things they're looking for is 12 cores, 20 cores? Which is, I don't know.
64 cores.
That seems kind of odd.
No waiting.
Yeah.
64, 65, whatever it takes.
So this BSD box I bought, I'm thinking, I had to decide what processor. I'm thinking, will I ever need more than 4 3.6 gigahertz processors in a box? No. But I'm not doing rendering. You're right. I mean, I'm not, so you have to consider your use.
You bought a Tesla with ludicrous mode, though, didn't you?
No, I did not buy ludicrous mode. Only insane.
If you push it off the top of the parking structure, it gets into ludicrous mode.
Just wait until redonkulous mode ships, Leo. Skip a generation.
You know they're going to do redonkulous. It was first it was insane, then it was ludicrous. What's next? It's got to be redonkulous. I'm actually most interested in believe it or not, in a MacBook Pro, and that's one that really is superannuated. I mean, it's been since spring of last year since they updated. Well,
yeah, I mean, again, like Skylake was tough, and then do you just keep bumping the MacBook with a small spec bump when everyone else in the industry is pretty much caught up design wise and spec wise? Or do you try to do something really interesting with it, which is what it sounds like Apple's doing? And then Skylake was not easy for Intel. It was so hard. They're doing talk with Kaby Lake for the first time. So you're dealing with Intel there too, but also you're thinking, what can we do to make the Mac Pro really stand out again? Because there's a sea of lookalike laptops now, and Apple sort of has these expectations for it. So whether it's the OLED strip or it's something else, all of that has to line up as well. Or if it's the graphics that they want to put in it so that it gets the kind of performance they want, all of that has to be ready at one time. And we still joke that it's a miracle that the iPhone ships every year when it's supposed to ship, because there's so many moving parts, from the chipsets to the manufacturing to the case design to the build to getting everything online. But it really, really is. It's like that joke about it's a miracle that Windows boots up on all these different machines every day, and Microsoft deserves endless praise for that. But once in a while, those things don't line up, and then wow, it's hard. You wait 16 months for an iPhone 4S, or you wait 18 months for a MacBook Pro.
Yeah, there's a lot of intriguing things going on with the next MacBook. I honestly, had I known in November when I again replaced my MacBook, had I known, number one, how absolutely in love I would be with my 12.9-inch iPad Pro, and had I known more about what seems likely for the next MacBook, I might have decided to tough it out for a year and waited to pick up the new model.
No, you couldn't. You spilled soda pop into it.
No, but I would have said, well, just like again, last year it looked like I was going to be without a car for a month or two, and then I said, okay, well, let's see how I'll just get by until I find like another car that I want to buy, and I still haven't bought another car because it turns out that it's been a real plus to my life to not have a car and to find other ways of getting around. That turns out I didn't need it at all, because my life had changed since the last time that I'd bought a car. It would have been an interesting experiment to say that it's going to kind of stink on some levels to use an iPad. Again, realize that at this point I had not been I'd only been using it for a month or two, and I think that would have been an interesting experiment for the year that it probably would take for the next MacBook to come out, to see if maybe by September I'd realize that, you know what, maybe I don't actually. I was smart to wait for this. This was I'll be at the event holding it, think it's a really cool device. But you know what, the past year has taught me that what I really want is a maxed out. What I really want is a maxed out Mac Mini for my desktop.
Oh, the Mini's really old.
Well,
the Mini's like 2 years old, isn't it? Let's see, October 2014.
It's never been a really yearly updated product, but it's also never lied fallow for this long either.
Yeah, but the point I'm getting at is that I was actually looking at. I'm not seriously thinking about buying a new Mac Mini anytime in the immediate future. But I was thinking about, again, if I were in that situation, I would be a MacBook spec'd out the way that I need it would be about $2,300 is about what I spent for the one I'm using right now. I could spec out a Mac Mini to the same standards for about $700 or $800 less. I'm using the iPad Pro so much that actually, if I were to turn around Crane Camnet 3000, the future of video podcasting, you could see that it's basically it's now a desktop machine mostly. I only ever unplug it.
That's what Apple wants, really. That's why Apple. I think that's why they're not paying attention to the other hardware. They want you to use the Pro. iPad Pro.
I also think part of it is that they know that if a customer comes in and says, you know what, I should just buy a NUC. I should buy like
that's what I did. I bought a NUC
machine.
Yep.
And they're willing to say, I'm sure you're willing to buy all new software and learn a brand new operating system. Or actually, we're sorry. We know that you can go out and buy a Mac from competing manufacturers. Oh, wait, you can't because we're the only ones who make one. I guess then we're not going to rush and make a Mac Mini that's updated until we feel as though we want to do that.
The only reason really we're talking about all this stuff is because everybody else is putting out new phones every month and new laptops every month and you see all this ferment and Apple. I mean, really, truthfully, you probably don't need a new 5K iMac if you have the latest one. You don't need
Leo.
Well, I
know you want to buy one, but really, they're fast enough. Come on.
It's tough because it is Apple against everybody else. So it is actually true that every month or so there is a new major phone that comes out. And so you don't necessarily have to wait until September when you find a phone that you fall in love with. If you decide that this idea of Motorola having a pogo studs on the back of the case, you can either cover up with the color of your choice, or you can add a hardware expansion to it to either give it more battery or give it a better camera. That's really great, and I think I'd rather buy that right now than wait for an iPhone 7 or 8 months later. And for each one who's considering a phone like that, there's another new phone coming out next month that might decide there was a hole in my heart exactly the shape of the Samsung Galaxy Note, the new version with the curved screen, with the super curved screen. So it's Apple. It's both a opportunity for Apple to say that, well, you're not going to go switch to Android or switch to Windows just because you're impatient to wait for a new device. On the other hand, it also means that they really have to make super good choices for the few machines that they make, because if they are behind, every company can gamble their company on what kind of feature for a phone is going to be important to people next year. Apple has to decide we have exactly 2 rolls of the dice, maybe 3, on a really, really productive year. We can't really serve everybody, whereas Android can serve everybody and still be profitable.
Crazy question. Do you guys call corn dogs pogos in the US as well?
Never heard that term before.
Because every time I hear pogos, I think of corn dogs because that's the brand here. So I get really hungry when they talk about new Android phones.
What do you call chocolate jimmies?
We don't have those. But Smarties for us are like M&Ms.
There you go. You call a lift a torch?
but our lorries do have boots.
Lorries with boots. What?
We'd like some tonic. I'm having a bottle of tonic while we wait.
If Apple were in a vacuum and didn't have all this,
it would be the best vacuum ever anyone has ever made.
Aluminium bead
Would
blasted.
people say, gosh, I need a faster graphics card? No, because the state-of-the-art games are not on the Mac platform. Video editing, maybe 4K video? No, Apple does a good job with that, right? I
can't run VR on a Mac, Leo. I'm very sad.
Yes, okay. Palmer Luckey is not happy.
No.
By the way, Mac people, it was a fad. Don't worry about it. It's over already. It's over.
We all know Apple's doomed.
Totally.
Heat
even
death
more
of the universe.
5 o'clock.
It will consume us all.
All right, so I'm not going to worry about what the next Apple hardware is. We'll just go with
It's going to be a busy September, Leo.
You think?
It's going to be a busy September.
It would be lovely if they did a Mini with some oomph.
Do you develop on the Mini? What do you develop on?
So I have a 2013 Mac Pro, which replaced a 2010 Mac Pro.
That's the trash can Mac.
That's what we call the trash can. Yeah. And I like it because it takes up very, very little space.
Beautiful. Nobody denies it's beautiful.
It sits on a shelf instead of on the floor.
Makes an excellent, good-looking doorstop for me. Really?
Hey, I'll be happy to take it off your hands, man. I can always use another one.
The prettiest doorstop I ever had.
Rich, I don't know if you want it, because when he says doorstop, he means that he actually hammered one end of it flat to jam it under the door.
It's in front of the Tesla, so he stops right off.
If it still runs, I'll take it.
I'm joking.
The Mac Pro, I really wish they had made some parts of it swappable, because we all know the technology has moved on since it's come out. But I got to tell you, it's still doing what I need, and I don't have any complaints about it. I'm not held back by the hardware.
You don't want mine. It never worked right. Seriously, I was on my second one. I traded it in, and it still doesn't. It's got weird USB crap.
Maybe it's just you, Leo.
It's a Rev A board that never got Rev B'd.
Right.
I don't want it. I don't want to say this, but maybe because it was assembled in the U.S. I don't know. That's a mean thing to say.
Knock on wood, I got AppleCare for mine, but it has been completely trouble-free.
Well, Apple's been very responsive. It didn't cost me anything to fix it, but it's still, and now it's out of warranty, so it's still not. It's not reliable.
It's a mutant. It's a mutant trash can.
I'd love to see new Mac Minis. With new guts.
I think the Mini is a really great form factor. And, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned the NUC, the Intel NUC, which is basically, it's so funny. Apple does a MacBook Air, and Intel invents the, what do they call it? There's a name for it. Anyway, it's a MacBook
Ultrabooks.
Air. Ultrabook. Apple makes a Mac Mini. Intel invents the NUC. It's the same thing. But the NUC has made progress, and you can get NUCs from a variety of people, not just Intel, a lot of different people. And you can get a lot of different things in it, and better video cards and better processors, and Apple's. I think the Mini is a great form factor. I'd love to see Apple do more with the Mini. Maybe make it a little smaller.
Home servers.
My NUC is smaller than
a Mac Mini. How about a Raspberry Pi that could boot Mac OS?
Yeah, in your dreams.
An Apple Pi.
No, because macOS, I'll tell you something. I'm willing to go out on a limb here and say, without inside knowledge, and say that Apple probably has macOS running on ARM hardware.
Oh, absolutely. You're right. Yeah.
So, you know, imagine this tiny, I have a Raspberry Pi on my desk, but you can't see it because it's buried. But imagine this tiny little box.
Because it's running Mac OS 11.
It's Apple Pie. It's Apple Pie.
Imagine
Apple Pie is such a good name, man.
Very little power, has an HDMI port out of it, and boots Mac OS.
But now, with the sale of ARM to SoftBank, does that change the equation or not?
I don't think so. Apple is an ARM licensee.
Right. We talked about this last week.
As I recall,
they license the architecture.
Right, and that's kind of what ARM is they're a licensing company that develops architectures and licenses.
But there's two kinds of license. One, you take an ARM chip as
They're an
is
instruction set
and build your own.
Right.
Well, and the other is what Apple has, an architecture license, which allows you to modify it, update it, change it. It's your basic.
All it means is they have the rights to use a compatible language on their chips, and they can make those chips look like anything they want, as opposed to other companies that license.
And Apple
the
has
design
1,000 chip designers. They bought PA Risk. I have to think that Apple's This is, by the way, this is something you learned from Elon Musk. Vertical integration. The more things Apple makes, the more control it has, the better, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've had ARM Macs running in prototype for years. I mean, anything that we can think of, they've got billions of dollars to prototype, and it's just a question. Like when Phil Schiller says that he doesn't like the ergonomics of a touchscreen Mac, he's not just waking up and saying that. They built one, he had it on his desk, and he played with it and said, not too happy with this. And the same thing with ARM Macs. Like you open them up, and then you start asking questions. Does it run a version of OS 10 ported to ARM? Because we know Apple. There was a university student who worked at Apple who published it as his paper, porting like Darwin and a lot of those things to.
It's not that hard because, frankly, all of this stuff. Next OpenStep was ARM compatible.
Does it run
on
OS 10?
It already runs, so it's not a big deal. And even if it were, Apple has the resources to do that. I think it makes sense for them to do the vertical integration. I think it's just a matter of them pulling the trigger. And this last year with Skylake probably is another nail in the coffin for Intel and.
But it's still those questions like, does it run iOS or does it run Mac OS? Does it run Photoshop? Like, does it run what version of Photoshop? Do we have to have a compatibility layer? Like
that's interesting. Yeah. What do you do with a third-party ISV software? Yeah.
Processor transitions are always tricky, right?
What would that mean to you, Rich?
What, Mac OS?
He's done all of them.
Yeah, I mean, you write it in.
I've seen a lot of processor transitions. I saw.
You write in Xcode, right? It might just be
68K to PowerPC and PowerPC to Intel. Honestly, the notion of Intel to ARM to me seems like more of a challenge for the OS because you need to. I mean, there's sort of two courses of action. You can either provide a layer the way Apple has historically done, something that temporarily lets you run Intel binaries on ARM, or you say, hey, listen, remember this bitcode thing we introduced where you could deploy something which wasn't necessarily targeted? Well, guess what? Now we can retarget your binaries and you don't even have to think about it. And then it's just a question of API availability. And then, You know?
Then also, is it open or closed? Like if it runs, because I think there's some that run iOS, and some people want a big open platform, and iOS is not a big open platform. So if iOS is running on Macs, then people, I can't do all these things I used to do.
They don't need to do that.
I don't think we'll see iOS running on.
They don't need
Macs.
to do that.
I think we'll see Mac OS running on eventually Mac OS running on ARM-powered hardware.
It's a much bigger challenge what's Rich going to do if suddenly it's iOS? That's a big rewrite because you're using OS 10 API calls. But as long as your software is all done in Xcode with standard API calls, it's probably just a recompile, I would bet, right?
It's a little more than just a recompile. That's sort of that's a popular trope that all you have to do is check a box or change a menu item or recompile. But
what would cause issues? Where would you run into problems?
Well, there are APIs that are older that may not be supported anymore, even though
it depends on on what kind of support Apple provides, right?
And there's a lot depending on what kind of support you get from Apple for the different API shifts.
Right.
It's all imponderable, but
So in previous processor changes, some APIs were deprecated and left behind.
Oh yeah,
and that's a problem because if you use that API, you got to find an alternative.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, the way Apple has operated with processor shifts and APIs, if the APIs that go away are ones that are so long obsolete that if you're still using them, you're past due for a rewrite.
Right.
And
do you do that? Do you kind of go through your code, refactor it, and make it more up to date periodically, or
all the time? Us, it's an ongoing process. That's actually one of the biggest ongoing changes that we've been making with the most recent releases is the code modernization and updating. Is a constant process with us. So, we're doing that all the time.
Yeah.
The new releases have less old code and more new code, if you will, than what came before.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it to be a painless transition, but it doesn't have to be as painful as it might sound.
Right.
And you may not need a carbon style, Rosetta style
and how
layers.
would that perform? I mean, on an ARM chip, how would that emulation layer would it run?
Well, that's the one thing you're going to lose with ARM is performance, I would think.
Okay, so here let me throw a concept at you. Right now, all of the ARM hardware that we've seen out of Apple is designed for extreme energy efficiency for a very high ratio of performance per consumed watt. But when you have a much bigger battery like the one in a laptop, or if you have a line supplied power supply, all of a sudden, performance per watt, you can give up a little bit of that ratio in the name of both greater performance and greater power consumption. So imagine an ARM chip that ran at some outrageous clock rate,
right?
That had some outrageous number of pipelines, and suddenly you can make it run very, very, very fast on desktop hardware.
Right.
By desktop, I include laptops as well. And when you don't have the constraints of a mobile device like an iPhone or iPad, suddenly, the horizons broaden a little bit. You can consume more power. You can run things faster. You can increase memory bandwidth. And then the notion of emulation, might be a little more feasible.
And is Apple moving to bitcode on OS 10 or just iOS?
I don't recall.
I think it's just iOS.
Just iOS?
Is it just iOS today?
It's part of app thinning, I believe, right now.
Okay, but that would be another signal if they started doing that on the desktop that might be part of the transition, right? Because then the porting is a lot easier.
I think the biggest question is the Intel transition was codenamed Marklar. So what South Park aliens could the ARM transition be named after? That's something the internet needs to solve.
I just think it makes sense for vertical integration, if nothing else. And if you get some benefits with the RISC architecture, because currently Intel's pretty much CISC.
Yes.
If you get some benefits besides power, obviously that's going to be good on a laptop. 20-hour battery life would be very nice.
Apple A9 makes, I think, the Core M cry on many, many levels. Like when you put them side by side. It's
Well,
just a
yeah,
really
because
good,
Intel
really
does the same
powerful
thing in
chip.
the reverse direction, right? They take their desktop chips and they make them low power, and that's what you see in the Core M.
But when you have a core, like to Rich's point previously, what happens when you put an ARM chip in a laptop with a fan? You're no longer worrying about thermals the same way you are in
or
an iPad.
a big heatsink. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I think that they'll get one of the great things about the iPads. Let's leave the iPhones out of it for now because it's not really the same class of performance or the same productivity device. Is that when you are really designing the whole widget inside out, you can optimize and get speed in ways that go far beyond just simply number of cores and simply number of cycles that you're getting. You can really start to make every inch, every micro nanometer of that pipe so that numbers get to the screen as quickly as possible, that that memory data is moving from I/O devices through memory and then through the CPU really, really fast. It's something you can't do if you're just waiting to get a FedEx box from Intel and then you'll figure out how to adapt this Intel box. But if you basically say, again, without this huge chip design company that Apple has internally, to say we basically want a MacBook that will run about as fast as an i5 processor and design whatever you need to have as a CPU. When I looked at the first time I looked at the MacBook Nothing, the thing that really struck me, I still have to call it the MacBook Nothing, or else people, I'm sure that people think that as you talk about the MacBook Air.
Manager book, that's the internal name, Manager book. Exactly.
The wedge book. But the first time I looked at it, like with it disassembled, I saw what old timers like me would call the motherboard, and I'm also looking at everything that this is. If you take out that part of it, and you look at every decision they made in assembling this, I look at that little postage stamp size motherboard, and I thought this was designed to run an ARM. If they were designing a MacBook that's going to run an ARM, this is exactly what it would look like, and this is the sort of priorities that they would have in trying to make the thing work. So I don't know if that points to a future direction, but I would like to think that there are a couple of offices very, very high up at Apple where nobody knows that their MacBook Nothing is actually running ARM in a special version of the operating system.
In the closet. Yeah.
And it's getting 43 hours of battery life.
Well, aren't they sealing the Mac Minis now? You don't know what's in there. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep saying this, and eventually it will be true. And that is that within 2 years we'll see Apple ship a version of macOS that targets ARM.
I think you're absolutely right, and it might even be sooner because I feel like everything's moving in that direction, and maybe SoftBank even had some inkling that ARM was going to be even more valuable soon. Of course, IoT is enough to push you to $32 billion for that company. But still, this is imminent. The analogy here with Tesla, Tesla had been outsourcing their cameras to a company, was it called LiveEye? And LiveEye even said, and Tesla has said, the problem is you can't have the cameras made by one company and then have another company do the artificial intelligence, the informational side of it. It really needs to be tightly integrated. So Tesla has apparently is going to stop going to, is it Mobileye or LiveEye, and go use Bosch cameras and do their own software, because the tighter integration is almost necessary for autonomous vehicles. And I see Apple in the same boat where vertical integration makes so much more. Not only is it more profitable, but makes so much more possible. And
you
that's
can see them going that way.
Yeah.
Like they did the Apple A9, and then they're probably working on a modem. And I don't know what Qualcomm's CDMA patents mean for that, but when the US is off CDMA, maybe the Apple modem will appear, and then the Apple photo optics, and then the Apple display. And when you do make these things, right now Qualcomm is making chips that have to work on Windows phones and Android phones. So they carry the burden of DirectX and OpenGL. And Apple, I had the M3 and the M7 latest generation MacBook. Intel deliberately hurt the M3, like they crippled the M3 chip, and it cries trying to do one 4K stream, and the iPad Pro can do 3 and laugh. And when you start to figure out, you can actually build exactly what you want for that. Like if you want it to be a video editor, you just do H.264, H.265 in hardware, and suddenly it's fantastic for playing and making video. And you can make all those decisions when you license the IP and build your own chip.
Yeah. I also think that philosophically, Apple is becoming a company that expects to be able to build, to specify every single thing that goes into that device and take nothing that's just simply off the shelf. And that goes beyond strategy. It goes beyond practicality. It goes beyond profitability. It becomes, this is how we tend to think of machines. We don't tend to think, we don't tend to, Andy Ihnatko buys a Raspberry Pi and then thinks of, gee, what can I build with this thing that someone else has made? Apple tends to think of, what would we need to create that doesn't exist yet that would allow us to create this imaginary machine that we think we are capable of selling in 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Rich, do you think the move to Swift is part of that?
I really don't.
Okay.
I think Swift is interesting. I think that Swift takes very good advantage of the core technology in LLVM, but I don't think that Swift is itself really part of a move to ARM.
Larger move. Okay.
I mean, are there certain advantages that come with an ARM-targeted Swift? Yeah, sure, I can imagine.
Well, LLVM itself makes it more portable, doesn't it?
Yeah.
By the way, it was Mobileye, and today they announced that they are no longer making the cameras for Teslas, and this Wall Street Journal published this story, and the speculation is that Tesla is going to take it all in-house. And Elon has always said, it's all about vertical integration. Let's take a break. Picks of the week coming up, unless, well, I should ask, any other stories? There's a lot. We didn't get any. I guess we should mention that CNET says that the iPhone launch will be September 16th.
That's based on EV Leaks, who has a history of leaking Android stuff on Twitter.
EvLeaks, huh?
Yeah, EvLeaks, sorry, Evan.
Yeah. It could just be a calculation, right? Let's see, the first Tuesday after Labor Day, and then 10 plus 10 days.
He's off a bit because he's saying that it would ship Friday the 16th, I think, which is a little bit earlier than Apple ships traditionally and a lot earlier than it did because it had a 3-week break. A 2-week break instead of a 1.5-week break last year.
The only reason I don't credit this is here in July, I don't think Apple will be setting a ship date.
I mean, those things are fluid. We saw them move last year. They pushed, the ship date was originally, I think, 10 days like normal.
Right.
The other really interesting news this week, though, was Bob Mansfield taking over Project Titan.
Oh,
which,
yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Bob is this, I love he's the blue-collar Bob, I call him. I love Bob Mansfield.
He's a legend.
Yeah, legendary in kind of ops, right? Operations guy.
Yeah, well, he took over hardware engineering at Apple, and then he saw through the iMac, the iPhone, the iPad, and then he left, and Dan Riccio succeeded him. He came back briefly because the transition was...
Oh, didn't he want to retire? Didn't Bob want to retire?
His family wanted to spend more time with his money, is the usual saying that you get. But he was never fully retired. Like, you would still see him at campus, which is like some of the story says, like, he was, as far as I know, he was still involved and he would still talk to Tim Cook, and he was there fairly regularly because he got seen around campus a lot. And the Project Titan, which is widely believed to be the Apple car, was under Dan Riccio, who's the current head of hardware engineering, because all of Apple's projects, are owned by different people within the organization. So Apple Watch is owned by one executive, for example, and iPhone was owned by Scott Forstall. But as you go forward, him taking this over is really, really cool because Riccio has a ton of stuff on his desk because he's managing all the other hardware engineering teams. Bob Mansfield has a ton of experience in doing all of this, and he gets to focus now on Project Titan. He doesn't have to split his time with all of Apple's other hardware projects. So for me, this is just a huge win. I mean, whether Apple ships a car, when it ships a car, and what other interesting stuff they're doing on top of the car, because I think the actual physical car is only one part of the really interesting stuff they're doing on that project. Having Mansfield there is just, it seems like a huge win for everybody.
Where are we going to see an Apple car?
To be determined. Apple doesn't pre-announce projects, so they can ship, however long it takes. I mean, people were saying 2019, 2020. Now they're saying 2020, 2021. Nobody wants a bad, premature Apple car, so take all the time you want, please.
Right. It's interesting, though. We've gone from maybe they're doing it to everybody's kind of convinced now this is definitely on the roadmap.
I don't know, a rumored unannounced project that nobody has actually seen any confirmation of. and nobody knows what the schedule is for, has now slipped.
Well, yeah, so that's the thing. Like the thing that makes me super excited is the iPhone was Project Purple, and that eventually got us the iPhone and the iPad. But it also got us Apple's new focus on security and privacy. And some people hate it, but the sandboxing. And there's just so much technology that has permeated all of Apple's product line and ways of thinking that were very different than when it was just one product with the Mac. And when you're creating something like Titan, there's going to be all sorts of technologies. And I love that Project Titan is not on Apple campus, but is external to Apple campus, because that means it's not stuck in every preconception that Apple has about every other product they've made. So to me, like whether the car ships or not is sort of secondary. It'd be super cool, but everything that comes out of there, I think, is going to establish the culture and technology for Apple for the next 10 years. And I think that's the really exciting part.
All right, we take a break now. That is a good. I'm glad you mentioned that. I forgot about that. I don't want to let that go. Yeah, Bob.
Don't let Bob off the hook. Yeah.
Blue collar Bob's back, and he's building a car. I don't know why. He's one of the Apple executives who actually looks like me, so I like that. Instead of all these good-looking, sharp hipsters.
He's much better looking than you are, Leah.
Okay. All right. I'll take that. We're going to take a break. Rich Siegel is here, but we're going to get rid of him now. From BBEdit, bare bones software at barebones, not just teasing you, barebones.com, Rene, Ritchie from iMore.com, and Ihnatko from the Chicago Sun-Times. Your picks of the week, gentlemen, in moments. But first, a word from the Adobe Marketing Cloud. Adobe white papers for marketing in audio. This is a great idea. If you have to do marketing, whether it's your job, if you're a CMO or head of marketing at a company, or it's your business and you don't have a CMO, but you need to market your business, this is a great way to keep up on a field that is changing really, really rapidly. And thanks in great part to technology. Who better than Adobe to do these white papers for marketing professionals, for business owners, or anybody who's interested in the latest marketing trends and technologies? These are absolutely free. They're on iTunes. Just search for audio white papers for marketing, and you'll go right to the iTunes listing. They've hired one of the best narrators that works at audible.com to read it, and they're very listenable. And this way, you don't have to read them. You can listen to them in the car on the way to work. From Brian, this is a review of Your Business Has a New Secret Weapon. I recommend that any organization that has written a white paper should do an audio version like this. An excellent example of how it should be done. Well-structured, cites external authorities for its major assertions, uses a journalistic voice throughout, never falls into a sales pitch for Adobe, and delivers on the promise in the title. Adobe, and it's free. You didn't pay anything for it. Adobe's renowned for these white papers on marketing. Now you can listen on the way to work. They're under 30 minutes, all of them, 8 of them so far, and more to come, I'm sure. If you want to know about the difference between interaction metrics, engagement metrics, and value metrics, if you want to create personalized content relevant to your customers using predictive analytics, create a 360-degree view of each customer no matter where they're interacting with your brand, this is what you need. Adobe.com has more information, or just easiest thing, go to open iTunes and search for audio white papers for marketing. You'll go right there, and it's absolutely free. We thank Adobe and the Adobe Marketing Cloud for their support of MacBreak Weekly. Our guest host today, Rich Siegel from Bare Bones Software, barebones.com. Any picks you'd like to pay? Last time you were here, I think it was something to jack my car up.
Yeah, jack points. I've used them. They're great. No, this week was tough because I don't really have any product picks.
Well, you don't have to. I mean, it's not a requirement. It doesn't have to be a product. What's your favorite? Are you an Eclipse syrup drinker or?
Yes.
Okay. See,
and
there
let's not get into Eclipse versus Autocrat, because that's like tabs versus spaces.
Well, you sent me last time, I think it was a couple of years ago when you were on, you sent me a very nice care package from Rhode Island. The only thing missing was Dell's frozen lemonade, but it included some Eclipse coffee syrup. And completely coincidentally, my doctor diagnosed diabetes just a few months later. So I don't think it's related. Anyway.
Well, it's a funny coincidence because here.
Oh, there's a Dell's. Oh, you're going to drive me crazy.
I
love it. It's the best.
This is my pick of the week.
Dell's frozen lemonade.
When it's 90 degrees out, this is the stuff you want. And Dell's sells their product in this very convenient transportable form.
I used to go to the truck.
Well, if you live in parts of the country that are undeveloped and there is no
Which
Dell's
I do.
truck,
Yeah.
you can buy these.
Oh, nice.
And make your own. Or you can add a sprinkle of this to your favorite unsweetened iced tea, and you've got an instant Arnold Palmer.
Oh, that's what I need. Can I buy this and have it shipped to my location?
You know what? I believe you can. And if you can't, if you know a guy, wait, is it know a guy or got a guy?
I got a guy. I got a guy. I got a guy. His name is Rich Siegel. I grew up in Rhode Island, and I didn't know this though. In 1993, the state senate approved coffee milk as the official state drink.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
No.
There's still a lot of dispute as to whether it's coffee milk or Dell's.
Yeah, I like them both.
But also just a word out to oh, look, there you go.
Look, I could get a bucket of Dell's.
1.9 gallons.
Oh, that's enough. That should do me.
two gallons of frozen lemonade.
That's a lot of Arnold Palmers.
You'll have a world-ending brain freeze. But yes, also a word out here to Bruno, who has been exceptionally well-behaved this afternoon.
Thank you. And he's a beautiful, is he an African? What is he?
He's an African gray.
Beautiful color. Look at that. And somebody in the chat room said, Rich looks like the kind of guy who kisses his parrot. Yes, he is. Thank you, Rich Siegel. Always a pleasure having you on. We really appreciate it. Mr. Rene Ritchie from iMore.com. Your pick of the week.
So my pick of the week is a very small but very useful Mac app called Rocket. And what it does is let you enter emoji faster. So if you've ever used Slack, it's super easy. Like you just start typing colon and then pretty much the name of the emoji or the name of something, and it inserts it in. And it's super fast because you never have to change context. You never have to let go of the keyboard. On the current implementation of the Mac, if you want to do an emoji, you've got to launch. You got to use a command key or to launch the emoji picker, and then you can search through them, but it's not fast. It's not efficient. It's not what you want from Mac emoji or Jiffy goodness. And this just gives you that. Again, it's just like using Slack. You start typing, it works the way you'd expect it to work, and it lets you use this wonderful, expressive pictographic and animated language in the way that the modern founders of the internet intended.
This is one thing that's going to make me very sad about moving to FreeBSD is the lack of quality emoji content. I mean,
they're great on, some people don't get them, but they're great on many levels. And I think we talked about this before, but if I'm running late and I say, Leo, I'm running late in text, maybe you're like, oh, you jerk, how could you do this? But if you send like a little sticker or a little emoji, like it creates affinity, and it kind of de-stresses situations. And many people find it much easier to communicate when they're using these little expressive pictures than they would in sort of an emotionless, awkward internet text medium. And especially with Jiffies, I mean, like it's hard not to love when you get the perfect cat Jiffy or the perfect, yes, and you're just petting a little bird who's prickly. I mean, it's just wonderfully expressive.
It's really
this
true.
Makes it
yeah.
so much better on the Mac.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. It's fabulous.
Yeah. We're humans.
Yeah, and there's something lost in text, the nuance, the body language, the subtlety that
the emotion. Yeah,
we first tried to fix with emoticons, but emojis, and finally
ASCII art, right?
animated GIFs, which really they finally scratch that itch.
That old CompuServe technology has become the foundation of our communication.
Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought we'd be using animated GIFs in 2016? They'd be like all the rage. Who'd have thunk it? Andy Ihnatko, your pick of the week.
I wish you'd called on me instead of Rene, because I almost had this timed perfectly. There is a kitchen item that I've been like sort of dreaming of owning since I was 8 years old, and my parents didn't have one. I saw the commercials for them, and then stupidly, only recently I realized that these things were still available. So I can't show it to you in operation, but I can show it to you the magical results of the West Bend Stir Crazy popcorn maker.
Oh, they're popping right now. It's happening.
It's finished popping. See, but it's amazing because like it's this like walk. Let me adjust Crane Cam 3000, the future video podcasting, so you can get a better look at it, it is essentially just like a wok sort of thing. You pour like a couple tablespoons of oil into, and then like half a cup to a cup of popcorn kernels into, and it's like it maximizes every variable of popcorn. Now, first of all, you get the Jiffy Pop aspect, in which you just see these like they're like a couple of motorized arms that just keep the kernel spinning through the oil so it doesn't burn and every kernel pops. So you basically get to watch popcorn appearing as if by magic in front of your eyes, and then you also get the advantage of stovetop popping, by which it's like light, it's fluffy, it's hot, it's crunchy, and it makes the room smell like popcorn. And also, you get the laziness of microwave popcorn, where when you're done, when it's finished, you just tip it over like this, and then take the scorching hot electric wok sort of thing. If you're not demonstrating it, you will not get the towel trapped underneath it like that. There you go. Because it is actually popping into its own bowl of popcorn. It's not that hot, but I just don't want to. I don't want to make it be a YouTube viral sensation by
Do it.
Scorching myself. There you go. And there you go.
Look at that, ladies and gentlemen.
It's like this is the best popcorn. It's like Alton Brown hates unitaskers. Alton Brown has said that I just put like a big steel bowl on the top of the stove, and I cover it with aluminum foil, and now you have a steel bowl you have to buy, aluminum foil you have to clean up. You just wind up here with just an actual bowl of popcorn that you take with you into the living room, or just keep this on an end table and keep making more popcorn as you go from the Lord of the Rings trilogy to the Hobbit trilogy. And again, it's just beautiful, crunchy, hot. Oh, if only you could smell how nice my office smells right now. I just smell like delicious, hot, fresh popcorn, and it's like $30. And I sort of thought to myself, like, why? I have $30. I'm going to make another $30 really quickly. Why don't I live the dream, and buy myself a stir-crazy corn popper? So here it is empty. So you can see like the spinning, like rotating arms there. And as you can see, like every kernel has been popped, and it's a very clean pan. When you're done, you can just like sort of unscrew these motorized arms, just give it a wipe out to take the grease out of it. There's like no cleanup whatsoever. You can toss the bowl part in the dishwasher. So it's my pick of the week because it's inexpensive, it's awesome, it's entertaining on several levels, and that means that as we say goodbye, now I have a bowl of popcorn I can eat as I go back upstairs to my one room with air conditioning.
Andy Ihnatko. He's the man.
I'm sorry, there is no phone app for this, okay? That does not disqualify it from being a useful kitchen item.
You make me want popcorn. If that was your goal,
there you go. If you can't have salt, you don't have to put salt on it. If you can't have sweet things, you don't have to. Okay,
no, I asked my my internet doctor, Dr. Mom, in the chat room. She says popcorn's okay because it's got a low glycemic load. So
there you go.
More popcorn for everyone.
But I don't keep chips and like tortillas chips and stuff like that in the house. Yeah, there you go.
Have it with your Dell's lemonade.
This stuff is pure sugar, but it has no trans fats and it's gluten-free.
It's gluten-free, ladies and gentlemen.
It's also
popcorn's gluten-free.
Cruelty-free.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Popcorn's gluten-free. Depends on what you use as your oil, whether it has trans fats or not. So, did you do a lot of research before you settled on the West Bend popcorn maker?
Well, I remember as a kid the commercials for the West Bend Stir Crazy popcorn maker.
Yeah.
I wanted to honor the achievement of the original intellectual property and patent holder, just like people get offended by Samsung, ripping off Apple. But yeah, I mean, I actually had the stove. The stove in this house is like a glass top, and you can't really shake a pan in front of it, and also creates a mess. I have a hot air popper, but it makes this like chewy sort of.
Yeah, I don't like hot air popper.
Not really right.
Yeah,
but this is exactly like. No kid. I got this like 3 weeks ago. This is probably my 5th or 6th bowl of popcorn. Every time I make this, I think I'm about to like dump this into a Roche Brothers brown shopping bag, shake it with salt, and then get into the car so my mom can drive me and my siblings to a movie theater to watch a cartoon.
Now, did you get? Now, there's. I'm looking because I'm, of course, in the market now for this
Can
fine
you confit
product.
popcorn? Asking for a friend.
Confit. You could poutine it.
Ooh. Don't start me. Don't tempt me, Leo.
Poutine corn.
You can popcorn ball it.
You can ball it.
Mix it with sugar, maple syrup.
Make
We
a
have
popcorn
poutine hot
ball.
dogs here.
Wow, there's another Rhode Island treat I haven't had in a while. Popcorn balls. Let's all go to the shore and get some clam cakes, and we'll
I'll invite Serenity. I'll make it a party.
Yeah. Hey,
go the roller derby.
Yes.
Have a real Providence weekend.
Did you get the dome one or did you get the bowl one?
You want the no. You don't want the flat sides. You want the kind of the bowl.
You want the bowl one. Okay.
You for entertaining. This is the sign of class right here. They'll know with the straight sides. They know you weren't sweating over a hot stove. But with the bowl dome, that's gonna be our little secret.
They can't tell.
Really, I kind of want to get one for like the for the garage. I want to get one for the boat, for the car. I want to buy a boat and get a car so I can.
Very important. What kind of popcorn do you recommend?
Probably because I was flashing back to the days of Let's Make a Deal and syndicated repeats when I was a kid, and listening after this thing, a supply of Jolly Time popcorn.
I remember them.
And I got to say that those people at ABC were very, very knowledgeable because it is light, it is yellow, it is fluffy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make the entire house smell like a 1973 Chevy Vega exploded and threw up inside your house, as microwave popcorn is wont to do.
By the way, in case you're worried, and here's the good news, the West Bend Stir Crazy Popcorn Popper is built to North American electrical standards.
USA.
USA. And the Ihnatko Chicago Sun-Times. Mr. Popcorn. Yeah. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure. CWOB.com. That's his website. Mr. Rene Ritchie, iMore.com, the place to go. If you want to keep up on what's going on in the Pokemon Go world or learn how to use your Mac or your iPhone better, it's the best.
All the above. Thank you.
It's the best. And of course, our good friend, Rich Siegel from Bare Bones Software. Always a pleasure. Don't forget to get your copy of Bare Bones BBEdit 11 now with the demo built in. Nice. Everybody, thank you so much for being here. We had a great studio audience. Thank you for being here. You can email tickets at twit.tv and let us know. We are about to move in a couple of weeks, so if you want to get to the Brick House, come here before August 20th. If you want to see the new studio, come here after August 20th. Either way, make sure you get the address changed, because when you come here and there's no one here, then you'll know. Go across town. It's not that far. It won't take you too long to get over. You can also join us live in studio. We do the show every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. That's 1800 UTC on Tuesdays. And if you can't do any of the above, just get the on-demand version. In fact, no matter what, why don't you subscribe to the on-demand version? That helps us, and that way you'll never miss an episode. You find it on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, including all the great Twit apps on every platform. Thanks for joining us. But I am sad to say you must now take your popcorn and go back to work, because break time is over. Bye-bye.